This video is about how to ask closed questions to someone who has no speech. This section is from my communication workshop. Closed questions are ones which require a yes or no response. You would like to talk to someone who has no speech and you do not know them. How would you go about starting up a conversation with them? The first thing that you should do is to establish how they say yes and no, because some people cannot nod and shake their heads. To start with, ask them to show you their signal for yes, and wait for their response. This signal could be anything from moving a hand to blinking their left eye. Then establish their no signal in just the same way. If you are unclear about one of their signals, ask them to show you again. Questions like, do they raise their eyes to say yes, are difficult considering you do not know their signals yet. Now that you are aware of their yes and no signals, you can strike up a conversation just by asking questions which require yes or no answers. Asking questions which require a yes or no response sounds straightforward. You ask a question, the respondent says no and you know what they mean. For example, you ask, do you want a drink, and they say no. You understand that they do not want a drink. However, if you ask, don't you want a drink, and they say no, the trouble is, what do they mean by saying no? No, they do want a drink, or no, they don't want a drink. This means you would need to ask the respondent another couple of questions to confirm their answer. The example above is a double negative question. These questions must be avoided when talking to someone with no speech, because they are impossible for the respondent to answer. You might realize those questions are limited, as the respondent could give one of two answers, yes or no. The questions that people ask could be made more advanced. For example, say someone wants a drink and the next question you would be asking is, what would they like to drink? Then you would give possible options such as tea, coffee, juice, and so on. When asking this question to someone without speech, you are aware it is easy for them to say yes and no. The way you would do this is, firstly, ask the question and give the options. The second part is saying the options more slowly, giving time for the person to say yes to the desired drink. There is a knack, and it is a slightly different way of phrasing questions. The negative thing when asking these types of questions is the person might want something else that has not been offered. For example, how many sugars does someone want in their tea? Very few of us would think to offer a quarter of a teaspoon of sugar. So please be careful you do give people maximum choice. However, some people prefer to give their answer using their communication aid because it gives them independence. A common mistake when people are asking these questions is they do the first part, and they do not say the options again, giving the respondent a chance to say yes to the desired one. If the respondent already knows what the options are, the person can say the question and say the options so the respondent can answer straight away. For example, if I want a drink, my assistant would just say the options for me to say yes. The above example uses the process of elimination technique. The process of elimination technique is about narrowing in on something. Take, for instance, a chest of drawers. Say the person wants something from the fourth one down. The other person would point to each drawer until they say yes at the correct one. Of course, if there were 10 drawers, you might start off by asking, is the drawer in the top 5? If the person says yes, Point to each of those until the person says yes again. Same principle applies if you have 100 of something, but you would repeat the process. So is it in the top 50? If the respondent says in the top 50, you would divide that half into half again. The respondent chooses the relevant half. Then you split that half again and so on. This technique could be extended. Let us imagine a tree with lots and lots of branches. Each branch is connected to 2 other branches and so on. Each branch represents a yes-no question, and the response given influences the next question being asked. I hope you understand me. Let us use an example. Let us say a person wants to tell you something, and you know this person well. You can suggest topics which they commonly talk about. For example, if someone talks about topics such as their family, friends, teachers, or fellow students. So the first thing to establish is which topic they want to talk about, and you can use the same method in the drinks example. Once establishing the topic, you can then ask yes-no questions within it. If your conversation partner wants to talk about their family, then you would go through their family members. Although the person can convey quite a bit by saying yes or no to questions and choices, that is still restricted as the conversation is determined by the person who can speak asking questions. For instance, if the person wants to talk about politics, the person is not going to naturally start asking questions about Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. This is where communication aids come in useful. I hope you find this video useful. As you can see, asking yes-no questions can be extremely effective, and you can obtain lots of information by asking these types of questions. If anyone would like my full communication workshop delivered for them and their group, please contact me.